Most gardeners are taught that the proper way to grow vegetables in raised beds is by filling the boxes with a mix of soil, compost, and mulch, then working tirelessly to maintain the structure year after year. I used to do the same, and while it worked, it always felt like I was doing more labor than necessary. Lugging in wheelbarrows of soil, spending money on compost, and fighting to keep moisture balanced in the beds became a cycle I grew tired of. That's when I discovered a shortcut, one that not only saves time and effort but also produces healthier, more fertile soil with less expense. It completely changed the way I manage my raised beds, and today I'll share the method with you step by step. The classic raised bed setup looks neat and organized, but beneath the surface it has flaws. Hauling in soil and compost is expensive, and in many cases, that soil starts to compact after a season or two, forcing you to break your back tilling or loosening it. Water management also becomes a challenge, as raised beds tend to dry out quickly in warm weather. To keep plants alive, you end up watering every single day, or honestly, installing irrigation systems that just cost even more money. After a while, it really starts to feel like the raised bed is controlling you, instead of you controlling it. This was the point. I realized there just had to be a simpler way. Raised beds, well, they should make gardening easier, not harder, and they really ought to work with nature instead of against it. So, instead of filling raised beds with all those imported soil mixes and relying on constant inputs, I turned to a natural, self-sustaining approach. My shortcut, it involves building soil fertility right inside the raised bed using organic matter, microbes, and natural decomposition. Think of it as creating a living, composting system right under your plants. Rather than filling your beds to the top with bagged soil, you layer, feed, and water in a way that transforms waste into black, fertile soil, all while cutting down on labor. This approach really does mimic the forest floor, where leaves, branches, and organic matter break down naturally into rich soil. Once I applied this method, my raised beds became a whole lot more productive. They held on to moisture for much longer, and honestly, they needed less maintenance overall. The foundation of this shortcut is, well, it's all about layering. Instead of dumping in cubic yards of expensive garden soil, I line the bottom of the bed with coarse organic material like sticks, twigs, and small branches. On top of that, I put a thick layer of dry leaves, straw, or even shredded cardboard. Then I add a green layer made of kitchen scraps, fresh grass clippings, or plant trimmings. This layering just keeps going until the bed is nearly full, and then only the top 4 to 6 inches are covered with finished compost or garden soil. This technique, well, it does two things at once. First, it saves money because you're using free organic matter instead of hauling in soil. Second, as those layers break down, they create a continuous supply of organic nutrients that plants can access over time. Plus, the decomposing material keeps the soil light, airy, and just full of microbial life. To speed up the breakdown of organic matter and, really supercharge the bed with microbes, I brew a simple living soil tonic that acts as a biological starter. It works kind of like compost tea, but with a stronger kick. Here's the exact formula. 5 liters of clean water, 2 cups of well-rotted compost, or, if you like, a handful of forest soil for microbial inoculation, 2 tablespoons of unsulfured molasses, which serves as food for the microbes, 1 tablespoon of wood ash to provide potassium and trace minerals, and finally, 1 tablespoon of finely ground eggshells for a boost of calcium. Mix all the ingredients in a bucket, give it a good stir, and then let it sit for about 24 hours. After that, you'll want to dilute the brew with 10 liters of clean water and apply it directly to the raised bed layers. This tonic, well, it accelerates decomposition, introduces all those beneficial microbes, and helps create a thriving underground ecosystem. I apply this solution once at the beginning when I'm preparing the bed, and then again every 3 to 4 weeks throughout the growing season to keep the microbial life active. The result is soil that practically feeds itself, so you don't have to rely on chemical fertilizers or keep adding compost all the time. You know, one of the biggest frustrations with raised beds is just how quickly they dry out. But the shortcut method really solves this by creating a sort of sponge effect inside the bed. The coarse organic matter at the bottom acts like a reservoir, soaking up water and then slowly releasing it to the plant roots. The layers above, especially the decomposed leaves and straw, hold moisture in place and, well, they help reduce evaporation quite a bit. On top of the bed, I always finish with a 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch made from shredded leaves, straw, or grass clippings. This mulch protects the soil from the drying sun, suppresses weeds, and keeps the entire system cool and moist. With this setup, I can often water only once or twice a week, even in hot weather, and my plants still thrive. The most rewarding part of this shortcut is, honestly, just watching how plants respond. Because the bed is alive with microbes, earthworms, and nutrients from the decomposing layers, the roots grow deeper and stronger. Vegetables like tomatoes, peppers, and leafy greens develop rich color, full flavor, and higher yields. Pests and diseases also become less of a problem because healthy soil supports healthy plants with natural resistance. Instead of constantly worrying about feeding my plants, I now focus on harvesting them. The raised bed works like a self-renewing engine, producing crop after crop with very little additional input. Aside from saving money and labor, this method is better for the environment. By recycling organic matter that would otherwise be wasted, such as kitchen scraps, leaves, and grass clippings, you reduce the need for synthetic fertilizers and chemical treatments. The microbial activity also helps capture carbon in the soil, contributing to long-term fertility and sustainability. In short, you're creating a system that gives back to the earth instead of depleting it. You know, the key to long-term success is to keep feeding the bed. Every season after harvest, I add a new layer of organic material, like leaves, straw, or, well, compost scraps, and then I water it with the living soil tonic. Over time, the bed just keeps getting better, richer, and more fertile. And if the soil level drops because of decomposition, I simply top it up with more organic matter, instead of hauling in bulk soil all over again. Another tip is to rotate crops within the bed, so that different plants make use of different nutrients. For example, follow a heavy feeding crop like tomatoes with a lighter feeder such as beans or leafy greens. This keeps the soil balanced and avoids nutrient exhaustion. Switching from the traditional way of managing raised beds to this shortcut has been a game changer for me. It turned a system that once demanded endless effort into one that practically runs itself. The raised beds now serve as living ecosystems rather than static boxes of soil. I spend less money, less time, and less energy while harvesting more food of better quality. If you've been struggling with raised beds that dry out too fast, compact too quickly, or cost too much to maintain, try this method. Once you see the results, you may never go back to the traditional way again. And if you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Growth Hub Central Crops and share this video with other gardeners. Together, we can build thriving gardens the smart way.